Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This is going to be the whole show. Just well, it might be nice to start with a nice ohm. For those of you who don't know the show, this is not a good intro for new people because you're going to be like, what is this? And it's just that this is what it is. It's 3 hours of welcome to mikeadelic. Welcome to the podcast. This is me. I'm Mike Brancatelli. You're you. We established that. You know who you are. You don't know who I am. Maybe you do. If you do, hey, welcome back. If you don't, you will. Well, got a great episode today with my good friend Danny Mazur. I love Danny. And yeah, this is a fun one. And we did 2 parts because the first part of the podcast we talked about some kind of more external political things, and then we got more into sort of the personal, the interpersonal, the inner world, and so I cut it up into 2 parts. We do talk about that stuff in this part, but then we really get into it even more, and that'll be available on Patreon. So you can go to patreon.com/MikeBrank, BRANC, and sign up for $5 a month. You get bonus episodes, a lot of bonus episodes coming. It used to be just one a week. We got more now. We have a private Discord chat. It's called the Inner Sanctum, Mikeadelic Inner Sanctum Discord chat. People all around the world getting together, sharing trip reports, stories, links, articles, just chatting it up. Trying to develop a nice community here, and would love to get some community Zoom calls going, which will also be for patrons as well. Plus, there's things like stickers and T-shirts that are probably never going to come, but I really want to do T-shirts, and I'm still I'm just behind on the 8 ball, man. I need a team. I need help. I need people. I've been doing this thing for 4 years now, all by myself, and finally the time has come where it's like, okay, I have to actually outsource here. So if you or anybody you know is good at editing podcasts, social media, marketing type stuff, or just like general, I don't know what to call it, general, podcast, like putting things together, links and things of that nature. If you think you can help and you want to help, let me know. Message me. Best way to get in touch with me probably is mikeadelicpod@gmail.com. Do that, but you could find me on all platforms and everything. Yeah, big shout out to the best sponsor in the world, Robert Patton. He is the founder, the owner of SHEATH Underwear, and just an amazing guy. He's got his own podcast called Robert Patton Global. I was just on it. Went down to the SHEATH compound where they have the secret silk and the secret spices that are making the amazing SHEATH underwear. I just got a flower of life pattern for SHEATH underwear. So good, so amazing, just really cool. The underwear is just really comfortable. It's like, why am I sponsoring underwear on the show? Well, it's not just because the underwear is comfortable and I love it and I wear it. That's part of it, but it's also the company. There's a real warmth and a depth and care and compassion for what they make and what they do and what they create and what they're all about, their vision, their mission. And Bobby is just like one of the coolest human beings on the planet, and his brother Matt as well. And they've just been so generous and kind and open to creating and collaborating and supporting my show and other shows that are in the podcast realm, I guess. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, it's just it's inspiring, as I said on Bobby's podcast. It's inspiring to see what he's gone through and what he's dealt with and what he's created, and I love their product. It's just really great. So if you don't know about Sheath, they're super, super, super comfortable boxer brief underwear that have dual pouch technology that, or I don't know if it's technology. Is it technology? It's a dual pouch system where you can, get some comfort in the regions down there that tend to get suffocated a little bit and sweaty and hot and just uncomfortable. So it makes things comfortable. And the fabric that they use is really comfortable. It's moisture wicking fabric. The designs, the pattern, the flower of life, like I mentioned, is really, really good. And it's like, I really love them. And it's this tricky thing. It's like, oh man, Mikeadelic is selling out, man. He's fucking selling out. And it's not a sellout. It's just a sell, I guess. I'm just happy to talk about them and recommend them. And they're good. So if you want awesome, comfortable underwear, get the Flower of Life pattern. It's so cool. They have all kinds of stuff. They even have stuff for women. My girlfriend got a couple things, sports bras, booty shorts, t-shirts. I love their t-shirts too. They're so comfortable, made of bamboo. What? I didn't even know that was possible. And like, isn't bamboo hard? How do they make? But I guess it's like silk. It's like silk. So it's amazing. Go to sheathunderwear.com and put in the promo code Mikeadelic and you get 20% off. That's Mikeadelic. You get 20% off. Sheathunderwear.com. That's it. Okay, cool. Next one is San Francisco Psychedelic Society. The San Francisco Psychedelic Society is selling psilocybin by the seashores with Sally and Seth from the San Francisco. Say that 20 times fast. San Francisco Psychedelic Society. San Francisco Psychedelic Society. They're putting on a microdosing event. Check out the description, the link in the description, and check that out because it's going to be really cool. I love what the San Francisco Psychedelic Society is doing, what they're putting together. Again, it's like same thing with Sheath. You have all these people out there that are, doing things and making things, but it's really, you see the entity and it maybe sometimes looks good from the outset, but really when you dive in, you find out the people behind the scenes. It's like, oh, that's why it's good, because they got good people that are heading this thing up, obviously, right? I mean, we all know that. It's all these companies and institutions are made of people. So they're really good people, and I love to partner with good people. So check that link out. Their microdosing event is going to be major, and I'll talk more about that probably on like social media or something. Okay, if you love the show, you know what to do. Go to Apple Podcasts, click a 5-star rating, leave a review if you want. Just really love and appreciate all the support. I love and appreciate all the people that sign up for Patreon. Really trying to build community here. I think that is the next phase of this show, is to have more of a community feel, more of a participatory feel, more group discussions and things like that. So go to patreon.com/MikeBrank, get the second part of this episode, get all kinds of other good stuff, goodies, and leave a 5-star review on Apple if you can. Also, just subscribe, like the show, do all the things, and tell people about it. I believe that I have a good show here, and you people, do tell me that, and it is challenging sometimes to figure out how do we spread the word more. What do we do? And I don't necessarily want to focus on that so much. I just want to focus on the content. I want to focus on providing an amazing listening experience for you people, and for everybody involved. I want to have good conversations. I want the guests to feel like they had a good conversation, and I want you guys to feel the same way too. So if you enjoy it, just tell as many people as you can about it. Spread it around. Share it. Clip little parts. Sometimes that's what I do when I listen to podcasts. I clip little parts of the podcast and put them up on social media and stuff like that. So just any help that you can do to spread the word, much appreciated. And that's about it. So Danny Mazur, for all of you who don't know, he was a guest on the podcast last year, I believe. I don't know. It's been a while. But Danny's a great friend of mine, and we're very similar in a lot of ways, but we're also very different. But I think that the podcast that we did together, the two parts of this podcast, really showcase how people with different views can, that I won't say people, I'll just say it really showcases how Danny and I can just have a great conversation, and we don't agree on everything. And that's cool. There's more to having relationships with people than just completely agreeing with everything, all their beliefs and all their views and everything like that. So I really love the sort of acceptance and the seeing of each other's souls, that comes through, and the humor and the play as well. Soul Stories is an amazing organization here in Denver. They host conversations to facilitate personal healing, human connection, and social change. And it comes in the form of storytelling events, dialogue circles, and also a podcast. So check out the Soul Stories podcast as well. All the links will be in the show notes description. You can go to their website, soulstoriesdenver.com. And Danny is the founder and executive director of Soul Stories. He also gave a TED Talk that is available on YouTube at TEDx Boulder. He gave a TED Talk called Creating Connection Through Dialogue. It was really good. I saw it live. I was in the audience. It was great. A big inspiration for Danny is Brene Brown. I have one of Brene's books sitting here, and I have yet to crack it open, but I will. I've seen some of her talks, and she is pretty great. And she says, vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. And I couldn't agree more. It's taken me a long time to really understand that, sitting in the truth of what is, opening up and being vulnerable to that, as many times as I have done that on the podcast, it's never easy. It's always challenging. And I just recorded a solo podcast that's pretty raw, open, and vulnerable. And, it's people like Danny that help me remember the power of that. I love this guy so much, and you will too. So without further ado, let's get in this conversation with my good pal, Danny Mazur from Soul Stories.
Psychedelics are illegal, not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open you up to the possibility that everything you know is wrong.
We don't need new laws that control our consciousness and rigidly place it in a prison.
Cognitive liberty. The fact that as adults, if we're not hurting anybody else, we should have the right to explore the contours of our own consciousness without any mediation or legislation on the part of somebody else.
Reject authority. Authority is a lie.
Or is it perception?
Information is power, but we have to seize the opportunity. The opportunity.
I wish we had video for this because it'd just be funny. Like it's like
just someone slowly tilting a mic.
Yeah, we're like, hi, hey, welcome to Mikeadelic, and I'm here with Danny Mazur, and
I can't get my back straight.
We're sitting in unconventional ways. Hey, this is Unconventional Ways with Danny Mazur. This is the podcast where we have our guests sit like corkscrews on chairs sideways.
Okay.
Well, I just want to make sure that you're comfortable and you
like 93% comfortable.
93? Okay. So
Yeah.
you're like the COVID survival rate. Got it.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's my nickname. The COVID survival rate.
Danny, the COVID survival rate kid. Mazur.
Oh man.
So yeah, man. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been about a year since we podcasted together.
Maybe 2.
What makes a podcast really? Because we don't. It's not like we have an agenda today. We don't really have topics. I didn't pre-plan anything. And we always have great conversations. That's why we're friends. That's why we hang out. So it's like, what happens now when we put the microphones on, and why the fuck are like, who, you know, like, do you ever think about that? It's like when people tune in to listen to a conversation.
Yeah, and I want to respond to your question with a question. Why is it even called podcast?
Well, because the iPod.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, youngin.
Yeah,
young boy.
Yeah, I feel like, damn. Yeah, that feels like an obvious one, actually.
The iPod. Yeah. Remember that? It was like, whoa, this thing that holds like 2,000 songs, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Man, I don't know why. I'm feeling so self-conscious right now.
Because I'm going to grill you.
I feel like I go on my own show and I'm just like ready to go. And now being in this seat, I'm like...
Well, take it. Take it away. Make it your show.
All right. Welcome to the Soul Stories podcast featuring Mikeadelic in the Soul Stories podcast, where we're going to interview Mike. So, Mike, tell me about yourself.
Well, I grew up a poor black Jew.
All right, so we're gonna move on to our next topic, Mike.
That's from Steve Martin's movie from the 1970s, I think, called The Jerk.
Oh,
it's just like a really silly comedy. He was, yeah, I've been watching old South Park episodes.
Did you watch the new one?
Yeah,
I thought it was hilarious. But people keep saying that to me, so I'm like, do I just have poor taste?
No, I mean, I thought it was funny. It's not like I didn't think it was funny, but I think comparatively speaking, the older South Park episodes had some more like magic in it. Like, I don't know, their critique on social issues worked for me for a little bit, and then it seems like that's all they do now. You know, I kind of miss the sort of contained South Park world episodes where it's just like the kids and they're still kids. Like, I watched an old one from season 4 or 5 the other day where Butters gets his tooth. Cartman gets $2 from the Tooth Fairy, so the kids are like freaking out because they think they're going to make a bunch of money by putting a bunch of teeth under the pillows and keep getting money.
Plot
it's like stuff that you would have thought when you were a kid. It takes you back to that time. And the one where they cosplay and like do Lord of the Rings, and
is that when Butters becomes Doctor whatever?
Yeah, Professor Chaos.
Professor Chaos.
You guys, you know want to play with me? Professor Chaos. Yeah,
he turns on the hose.
That was the one with the ninjas.
Yeah.
But it's to me it's fun because it's I don't know. It's just like these kids who are like kind of crude, and it's a cartoon, and you remember stuff from when you were a kid, like how you thought and how you behaved.
Yeah, that's a good critique. I should rewatch some of the older ones. Yeah, it's very it's very on the nose right now. Like, everything is like, this is actually what's happening, and now we're gonna critique that, and then that's the next plot line, and
yeah. I think I'm usually game for clever social commentary and parody and satire and that kind of stuff, but sometimes I just bring me back to like the contained sort of world, you know, like the world before everybody was connected and knew everything, and everything was like, do you feel that way at all? Like, do you feel that, do you know what I'm talking about? Like, but the world of when you were younger, and it just kind of felt like, hey, this is like my world, my community, and you didn't have this crazy sort of always present sea of connection. And just you can connect to anything at any time, know anything at any time.
No, I often think about how bad I feel for like high school kids now, because I'm like, you're so involved in politics right now. Like, and I was learning about it in school, and my dad had opinions and some of my friends had opinions, but it wasn't my reality. And now I feel like we're in a place where kids are just, they know everything. they can access everything. And I don't know what that's like. I would love to talk to like a younger Gen Z person, but yeah, it'd be nice to go back. It'd be nice to have like knowing what the bigger cultural narratives are and not having that have to influence your own social circles all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the invasion of reality narratives.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the attack of the multitude of realities.
Yeah.
It was not like life was definitely. I was also younger, so let's not discount that as well. Because when you're younger, you don't have this conception of the you just don't give a shit about a lot of the sort of socio-political, geopolitical issues of the world and things like that. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm exhausted. That's why I'm listening to podcasts like Come Town, and I'm just listening to like really the complete opposite of anything that's like intellectually stimulating.
Yeah, I find that too, and that's why I was telling you about listening to Pardon My Take. I don't even really watch sports, but like I actually am watching sports because of this podcast now.
Wait, I thought you were a sports guy.
I am.
You're a basketball guy.
I'm a sports guy, but like I don't consume a lot of the stuff, like the Sports Center and watching the games.
Right, yeah.
But I have been watching sports more. Anyways, I think I feel tired too. Like it's rough.
Yeah, do you ever feel like you have a pressure to perform a certain kind of social responsibility in certain areas? Like I for example, I remember someone commented on the podcast like that I wasn't having enough people of color and female guests and things like that, and my first reaction was like, I don't know, I mean, it's just like I do the show and whoever I want to talk to I just talk to, and I never thought about the value of including a diversity of voice. Like I just didn't think about that. It wasn't at the top of my mind. But then I also thought like, well, I don't want to change the show. You know what I mean? Like it's like a certain kind of responsibility if you have a platform or you feel that you need to make a contribution in some kind of way.
Well, you also don't, like with the diversity question, you also don't want to objectify the diversity.
Yeah. Right.
Where it's like, well, that person.
On today's episode, black guy. It's like, like today's episode, woman.
Tell us about being a woman.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, that's not what you want. But I completely 100% support the idea of inclusivity because to me, it just makes sense. If you hear, like, people aren't impacted unless they hear and see somebody that resonates with them and their stories.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's like the whole like white guy privilege is like, it's so real because it's like, Jesus, we can turn anything on and see a white guy in every like facet of society,
Right.
Even like female specific roles. If we're talking about old gender roles, you can just find white guys and it's, I don't know what it's like not to have that experience,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thanks. Count that one for me, listeners.
Do you feel that because, like, does it really matter that much though? Because like we see superhero movies and comic books and things like that, and for example, I know a friend of mine who's black, he's a big comic book guy, and he like loves Wolverine as like his favorite character. But Wolverine's a white guy, so it's like, and also women who are fans of venturing into very shaky territory, women who are...
That's your listener warning.
Yeah, well, I'm just like, I'm an idiot. I'm just trying to explore ideas.
We're just jamming.
But like women who are fans of, say, like the old Star Wars, right? Like there's or something like that. And it's like we can, like, I'm a fan of certain female characters and things like that.
Yeah.
And just if something's cool, I resonate with it. It doesn't really matter to me. But then again, there's also the added benefit of like having somebody that really that you see yourself in that person as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I think it's a line. I think it's totally like, and that's why I think it's irritating when people completely discount it, and it's irritating when people only focus on it.
Yeah.
Because I find it like a balance.
Yeah,
like,
balance, yeah.
Miles Morales, the new like Black Spider-Man, is a great example of like a well done, diverse character that like
I love that.
Miles Morales is dope. Like I fucking love Miles Morales, and like, but just being like, I don't know comics that well, but like being like She-Hulk and She-Thor, it's like, okay, well, do we need to do that? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
it almost feels like lazy, kind of. It's like, here's your female character. Here's your female representation. It's like, no, give us a fucking cool story.
Right.
And we'll
be down.
We'll buy in.
Right.
Like, it doesn't fucking matter what it is.
Right.
Like, yeah. You know what I always found funny was like how people would complain about like, how do they have these white guy actors in these movies that are supposed to be representing people like Jake Gyllenhaal was in The Prince of Persia and he played like the head guy. And in one frame of mind, I'm like, yeah, they should get somebody who's
like a Persian actor.
Yeah, they should get someone in the vicinity of that area, right? Okay, I understand it's acting, and the point of acting is to pretend to be someone else. That's true. But it also looks goofy as fuck when they're like, you know, like Richard Gere is like, you know, Osama bin Laden.
Have you ever seen do you watch Avatar: The Last Airbender?
It's in my queue. Yeah, people have told me I have to watch it.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the movie by M. Night Shyamalan?
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
Yeah, he like, all of the tribes people are Asian, but like the leaders of the tribes people are white. And it's just like, it's one of those things you just look at and you're like, oh my God, like how could you be this idiotic? Yeah. Like when you're casting shit.
Yeah.
Like just, if you're going to do that, just make everybody white. Like don't be like, this Asian kid is a white kid with a bunch of Asian people. You know, it's like, what the, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Tom Hanks. Oh, actually, this is a Paul Mooney joke. Now that I'm remembering correctly, do you know who Paul Mooney is?
I know the name, but I don't know who it is.
Yeah, black comedian. He was on the Chappelle Show, and he had these hilarious segments. And I can't say them, but go Google Paul Mooney because it's fucking hilarious. The things he was like. One of them was The Last Samurai, starring Tom Cruise. Are you kidding me? And then he like goes off and makes all these other comparisons to things. But yeah, it is. I think when it engulfs your entire reality and it becomes your identity, it's we have a problem with balance. I think, right? Like it seems like that to me.
Not people don't like balance. People like balance, but like media narratives don't like balance. You know,
right? Because it's not sexy. It doesn't cause you to click.
We're also like in an age where everyone has a fucking podcast, you know. Everyone has like you need to take that?
Nope.
Everyone has like a platform, and I feel like Tim Dillon was saying this on Joe Rogan, that like the only way to get people to like listen is to like be kind of evocative and say some crazy shit.
Right.
And that's how you get listeners.
Yeah.
And so then now that we're in like the entertainment industry, politics world, it's like everything has to be so intense.
Right. It's like, sensationalized. Yeah.
I dream of a world where I can call politics boring.
Right.
Remember when we used to say politics was boring?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we said when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like nobody liked politics because it was boring as hell. And that politics should be boring. Like we tried it. We tried social media politics. We tried it. And let's just say it wasn't a great experiment. And let's move back to boring. Let's get lawyers. Let's get people who study law. And let's not get like outsiders who are on the street yelling into the sky and like, I love this guy's point. You know, I mean, that's an extreme, but
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So you were telling me before the podcast that you just have hate in your heart for people that are Antarctican, born in Antarctica.
Yeah.
You just don't want them here. And
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this.
I'm trying to sensationalize this. Hot take.
Yeah.
Get them in hot water. Controversy.
Those PhD researchers who spent their whole lives studying ice.
Yeah.
Get them the fuck out of here.
Fuck them.
Fuck them.
But yeah, no, you're right. All right. So I sort of disagree. I think politics should be more engaging, should be more sane, and should have more of a normal feel, and be represented not just by lawyers, because lawyers, in my opinion, are some of the worst human beings on the planet, because all they do is manipulate language to be like, well, actually, technically, you weren't actually sleeping when that events happened.
Have you had personal conversations with like people in law?
Yes,
they do that.
I know.
I've totally had that experience where like they're the first person to like screenshot a previous message.
Yeah.
And be like, no, this is exactly what I was like, okay, all right, well, I guess law is happening in our personal text messages.
Right. So it's like if someone hit you, with their car, like while you were riding your bike and you were like in court, it's like something, be like, well, it didn't actually hit him. See, what happened was the car slid out of control. Now, are we supposed to be responsible for all kinds of accidents and defamations of characters? This is the United States of America. If people can't get away with an accident, they'll just twist it and spin it. And
can you tell me about that accent?
Yeah, it's like a Southern lawyer.
Okay.
Nah, Your Honor, now. I do declare.
Some like Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah. Foghorn Leghorn is a lawyer, yeah. But yeah, I think it should be like, if we're going to have this system that we have, let's nominate people that are in diverse areas. So you have a gym teacher and like a scientist.
Maybe not a gym teacher.
Why not?
I don't know.
Does his life not have value? Are you against gym teachers? You heard it here first. Danny Mazur, racist against gym teachers tonight on Hard.
I'm saying, like, what about English
Current
teachers
affairs.
and social studies teachers?
Sure, but like what I mean is just let's have an accurate representation of the population of the country. Mm-hmm. If we're gonna have this farce of a system, let's at least make it so we feel like we're getting fucked by people that we know and like.
Yeah. So would you say burn the whole system down? I feel like
yes.
Okay. What does that mean? What do people mean when they say burn the whole system down?
So I'm not like I don't really like what I mean by it is this. As human beings, we enter into contracts, quote unquote, not real contracts, but like verbal agreements as to what we're going to do. I asked you if you wanted to come by and do this podcast. You said, yeah, we did that. You run your Soul Stories events. You ask people to attend. They pay a price to come. There's a certain kind of set of rules. People generally agree to those rules. If not, you're just like, okay, well, you're going to have to leave or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So we do a pretty good job of organizing ourselves, right? Yet we have this sort of delusion that we need this massive centralized bureaucracy to sort of represent us in a way, but they're not. They're not representing us, and everything they do is just to stay in power, and everything that they do is. I don't want to get away from the point. The point is that they rely on the means of force and coercion in order to get people to comply. So if you don't do X, then there's a fine for this, there's a penalty for this, there's jail time for this. You can't, if you eat mushrooms, we're going to put you in a cage. If you smoke a joint, we're going to lock you up. If you jaywalk across the street, we're going to harass you, right? So it's like all the problems that we have with police, from police to education, all those areas, I think would be done way better in a voluntary way, not in a mandatory way where it's like you have to do these things. So many things that we do are just so archaic, but we only do them because it's like tradition and it's like the way it's been done and things like that. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
My main problem is the fact that there's an organization that we call the government that we give special privileges to that we wouldn't afford anybody else or any other group.
Yeah.
And they are able to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish through the means of intimidation and threatening and force and violence and coercion.
Yeah, it makes me think of what my close friend and your friend Chelsea says. Also, she says hi.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Hello, Chelsea.
It's like, who do you trust? And clearly in that, like, what you just said, like, you don't have trust for a centralized government because your perception of what they do is to hold power, strictly to hold power, and like not having the interests of the people in their minds when they make those decisions. You know what I mean?
That tends to be a result of a lot of the people that are attracted to government.
Yeah.
I think there has to be something kind of slightly wrong with you a little bit if you're attracted to the seat of the presidency, for example, something like that.
Yeah.
Who wants that much power? But really my issue is with the incentive structure. I think human beings are motivated by incentives, right? It's like, why go to work? Well, because they're going to pay me money and then I can buy things. And, we're motivated by what's in it for us.
Yeah.
And in politics, it's... The incentive structure is perverse. It basically says that like we know what's best and we're gonna mandate it and everybody has to agree and we're gonna why should 318 million diverse people have
how many people are in the U.S.?
Yeah,
damn.
Ethnically, culturally, religiously, spiritually, ideologically, we're not all gonna agree.
No, clearly we don't.
Yeah, so it's like, if you're in a marriage and you're like, this isn't working out, the best thing to do is get a divorce. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you wind up going crazy and turning your kids into psychopaths and murderers and things like that, whatever. But a healthy environment with healthy leaders that lead by example is definitely what we need, and we just don't have that because this thing has grown too big. It's too out of control, and nobody deserves to have that much power and influence over the population.
That's true. I think of all the alternatives, and it's just like, I don't know if we could get it right as humans. Like, I inherently don't trust a country this large to be able to pull that shit off. Like, we'd have to be our own territories.
Yeah. I'm in favor of that. I think it's interesting because the government uses unity and togetherness as a way to cloak its like hegemonic control.
Well, I'd say maybe not unity, but like more like whatever you're against.
When I refer to the government, I mean the sort of, if you see things like, we're spreading democracy across the globe, and we're like, we're the freest country, and like we're imperial. That's what I mean. It's like the imperialistic view. We just can't do it. Like, plus it's boring when everybody's the same. We need diversity. We need uniqueness. We need radical experimentation. We need like socialism to be taking place in Utah and like libertarianism in Colorado and New Mexico, capitalism in Texas and in New Mexico it's just like a fucking Mad Max, whatever. Like that's gonna happen. Those things are gonna happen, but it's gonna happen on such a smaller scale because right now what we have is an empire of death and destruction that extracts resources across the globe and works with big corporations, and people get fucked. We get fucked. We're capable of so much more, and we get totally fucked.
Are we capable of so much more? Like, humans are capable of so much more.
Yeah,
humans are capable of so much more, but like, I don't know. Everything feels like such a double-edged sword. I mean, there's so many.
Of course, it's a double-edged sword.
People growing up. Like, I work with kids who've been through trauma and abuse. I work with your kid who you're going to expect to be the next school shooter, and it's like. The amount of...
Do you guys like place bets on them? Hey, who's got Henry?
Yeah. I mean, there's back talk. There's I've said some fucked up shit in the back room a few times.
I worked in a school for handicapped and mentally disabled children over the summer.
Yeah.
And I came in there with like, and we'll get back to what you wanted to say, so hold that, remember it. But I remember coming in there and being so polite and so, wow, like what a privilege to be here and these children. And then by like the third day, I realized that like all the teachers are like, joking and laughing and saying like, like not fuck that kid, but just, it was actually really beautiful because they're not treating them like, like these special, like
100%,
they're just treating, there's an equality that happens. And so like maybe a kid with like a, speech impediment or something like that, there's a little bit of like a goofing around with that kid, then he understands and the teacher understands and there's this camaraderie and this bonding. But I didn't know that going in, and to see that, I was like, oh yeah, this is great because we all get to just treat each other like we're normal, and we are.
Right. Like if that kid with a speech impediment says like a dickhead comment to a teacher, you don't just like treat them like they're like fragile glass.
Yeah.
You're like, no, that was mean. Like you can't say that kind of thing.
Right.
Anyways, the whole point was, and that's not even a good representation of what I believe about behavior management. But what I was saying was there's just so much trauma and like suffering in the world, and there's so many people who treat each other so poorly, and to overcome that, to not do that requires, education. It requires like income. It requires good role models. It requires like so good environment, so many factors. And I just don't know if that's possible for everybody to experience. It's like, I know that's like maybe a sad perspective, but like there's so much trauma in the world. And I think a lot of these people drawn to these positions of power have horrible self-esteem, have like narcissistic issues, have problems that they've never dealt with internally. And then their whole goal in life is to externally have control and power. And once you have that status and the money, like, then you're like, this will cover up the pain,
Right.
I don't know. Are we on the same point right now?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that makes sense.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that, I guess I do have faith in people because I feel like I see it, and I see that we can do things when, given the right incentives and when people have the right sort of environment in order to do those things. Like,
totally.
If say that there's like a little micro economy here that that operates in just sort of like a volunteer and a giving kind of system, where everybody gets the sort of things that they need, like whatever, just say that there's, I guess that does happen, right? You have community, like places where people can get food and things like that. So that already does happen. You see people those are the people with the goodness in their hearts that actually want to make change.
Yeah.
Are the people that are running the places where you can go and get food and pay whatever you want. And the food shelters. What's the one called that's by your house? It's like is it not a food shelter, but they have like a surplus of apples and things like that.
There's one right over here. It's like the Red Shield.
Yeah, but there's Goodwill, right? People go and they donate their clothes.
Yeah, and not to like say that we're not capable because of trauma, but like I just feel like any group of humans together, there are going to be people with good intentions and people who have been, for whatever reason, damaged in different ways, that struggle with their mental health, with their physical health. And like a community is always going to have to regulate itself between people with negative intentions for that community and people with good intentions for that community.
Yeah.
No matter how small or big or what country or what government, I think.
Right. And I think that it works better when, I think it works better when you have voluntary participation and cooperation. And
volunteering for anything is better.
Well, yeah, like you want to be there, you want to participate, and the people that are governing or leading, they want to participate as well, and it makes it more of a community. And there isn't, there's also, it's a smaller scale. So what the point that I'm trying to get at here is that the current system that we live under right now creates a lot of trauma by being under it, because it sets the agenda for the reward system that we have to play by in order to survive and succeed. And it attracts a lot of people who are greedy, power hungry, and those kinds of things. So that's still going to happen, but it'll happen on a smaller scale. So it won't be as ingrained in the systems. It won't be as detrimental to the masses. So you'll have pockets of like corruption and pockets of people that are not governing in the best kinds of ways. But overall, I think it would be better for a lot of people, because under the powerful king, dictatorship style of empire, it's like everybody suffers, right? Like the Galactic Empire in Star Wars, it's shitty for everybody. Mm-hmm. But if there were just smaller bands of, factions of like little rulers here and there, it's a little bit less suffering.
You think so?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know. I have this like instinct to challenge everything you say right
Please
now.
do. I want you to. This is great. I love it.
I feel like we were there at one point. Like I feel like we're like, we're constantly experimenting with different structures, and like, I mean, I'm not very good history buff. I'm better with like human psyche.
I like the word
stuff.
buff, by the way, as someone that's knowledgeable in an area.
Yeah. It's got like a gym like buffness to it.
See, I don't even think about it in that way. Like buff, like to call someone buff would just be weird. Like, oh, that guy's buff, he must work out.
Yeah,
but
it's a very uncomfortable
to
comment.
say that you're a history buff, I like the way that sounds, because it makes me think that you like, you have like a nice chair where you read big leather bound books, and then you make like a model train set and smoke a pipe or something.
Sounds like a dream reality.
You want to do that?
Yeah, I would love that. I used to love trains.
Yeah. Model trains, yeah.
No, I like Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways.
So you're saying you're not a history buff. All right, qualifications.
No. I know very little about mostly nothing to start this sentence. But like, weren't we having societies back in the day where people lived next to each other under their own like little small community, and then people just started taking each other over and like pillaging and becoming the world's greatest conqueror, and then huzzah.
Yeah.
Like we end up,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think that we have more of a chance nowadays because we have the internet, and people can be, it doesn't have to be strictly bound to a regional territory. Like, so the example I was giving before about like, well, Texas could be this way or Colorado could be that way. It's like we could all participate under the sort of regulations that we want to fund, right? And that we like, where does our tax money go? Like, if the government actually cared about us and actually cared about the health and well-being of people, they would just send us like a voluntary contribution list. It could even be over the phone, and you could just be like, cool, say everybody has to donate. And I know some of my listeners are going to hate this, but let's just say everybody has to donate 10 to like a certain percentage of your income, right, to taxation. So, okay, you
got low tax listeners. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I just think taxation is theft, in the way that it is happening right now.
Would you call yourself libertarian?
I'm an anarchist.
Okay.
Yeah, if anything, I believe in anarchy is just the free association of people coming together in spontaneous and voluntary ways to cooperate and collaborate for an agreed upon means. Mm-hmm. It's the purest form of humanity is really, and then we get all these clever ideas about how we want to do all these things, but really it starts. Anyway, I don't want to diverge too much, but let's just say that everybody had to contribute. We'd get like a little sheet, and it'd be like, oh, cool, like I support this, I'll put my money to that. Oh, I don't really support that, so I won't put my money to that. And then the people will literally have a a voice and like literal representation. There's no reason why we can't do things like that. We have encrypted messaging systems. We have banking online. Why can't we have more engaged political action online, you know, and be represented in ways where maybe so take Colorado, for example. Maybe there's a bunch of people in Colorado that want to keep putting money into the defense industry, right? You got Lockheed here and a bunch of, but like, I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to contribute to that. Maybe you won't either. So it's like, okay, cool. Like that portion of my money, I'll put into feeding the homeless instead, or housing the homeless. And then we literally get to just.
So like voting on where your tax dollars go in a very like.
In a direct way.
In like a popular vote kind of style almost. Not even a popular vote style, but literally clicking a button and your money goes over here.
Yeah. And everybody gets a say into where it goes and what gets funded.
So I actually do like that idea.
But hold on, just wait.
Yeah.
Because there's more.
Yeah, great.
Hurry and act now. Imagine that exactly what I just said. Now take away the apparatus of the government and just have leaders that encourage people and lead by example. So you have, say, the mayor of Denver, right? Is just like, hey, you guys elected me to be mayor. Like, cool. This is what I care about. I care about the homeless population. I care about, the prison population, people convicted, like whatever. You know, I care about community centers and things like that, affordable housing. Like, who's with me? You know, and it's like, cool. And then there's like private companies that want to make money, and they just start getting involved. I mean, there already exists people that are doing things, and people just put it's just known about. So maybe the only power of government is to just present people with more options and encourage people to participate in things, but they don't actually have the function, because when you think about it, government is just a bunch of lawyers and bureaucrats. They don't fucking have. You ever go to the DMV, the post office, a government website? It's like, what year are you living in?
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
Like, let's get some young, passionate entrepreneurs, creative thinkers that can make things cool and accessible, get people involved where it's not annoying. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
I like it. I mean, I like what you're saying, and I like the ideas behind it. I mean, mostly because and I think we both at our core just like believe in community.
100%.
And I think that's what I hear coming from you.
Yeah.
And I do believe in community wholeheartedly. I also am wary of a lot of different things in your ideas, but I like the direction. I would love if we moved in a similar direction. I don't think community is always healthy. I think community can be extremely unhealthy and can be extremely healthy.
Yeah. Well, maybe elaborate on that a little bit, because I think I know where you're going, but I would like to hear.
To anybody listening, or to you, Mike, like, think about a time when you were surrounded by the wrong people. You know, the wrong people find each other, and they regulate their system of community to healthy ideas get like expunged. You know,
right? Like that one time I was in the Latin Kings, that didn't go so well.
Nice. We need like a laugh track.
But yeah, that's a good point.
You know, I don't know. I mean,
but we're kind of in that right now with national politics and the federal government, because we're in this like massive community, and it doesn't feel like a community. It feels like an abusive relationship, and most of us have this weird Stockholm syndrome where we're like, well, we can't like do anything else. We just have to fucking vote for Biden and hope that everything gets better magically somehow.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's totally true. It's like we're putting all our weight in this like one guy. Like,
it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I would advocate for the abolition of nationalism.
Yes.
Nationalism, I think, is bullshit, and it's just like a sports team thing.
Yeah.
And it totally is just it's just so crazy how hooked we get on narratives. Like, why are we so hooked on narratives? We love stories. We love stories so much.
We do. Yeah. Well, here's the problem, right? You're always going to have, there's just dickheads in the world.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
There's just dickheads in the world.
There's just people that are assholes, but a lot, like you said before, a lot of it does come from this trauma, you know?
Oh yeah. I think people are naturally neutral and I think they get pushed one way or the other. And I think some people are naturally good and some people are naturally a little bit of a dickhead, but they're not naturally extremely a dickhead, I don't think.
Yeah, so what I think needs to happen is like an alien invasion, and the aliens vaporize like half the population on the planet.
Race wars would be gone.
Yeah, we would all unite.
We would all unite.
Ronald Reagan even said it at the UN. He was like, I fear that only an alien invasion would bring us together in unity and fight a common enemy.
Everyone needs an enemy.
It's kind of true. I mean,
wrong.
There is something about unifying under a common purpose or goal. Whether, and I see that in a lot of people right now, especially when I go on Twitter, just so many people that just hate Donald Trump and hate Republicans. And it's like, yeah, I get it. They suck. They're awful. But like, why are you wasting all of your energy and time putting hate out there to people that you don't personally know? And two, that like, I'm sensing that there's a lot of projection. There's a lot of I agree. Let's fucking, it's this fucking person's fault. It's these people.
Right. Or is that your like unresolved anger from when you were 7?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there goes like again, because it's really about family, how important family is.
Family
and not just the nuclear family, but did I say nuclear right? Is it nuclear?
I would say nuclear.
Nuclear. I remember people made fun of George W. Bush once because he said like, what did he say? Nuclear.
I think he fucked it up like pretty rough.
Nuclear. That guy. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean,
honestly, he seems like a liberal now compared to Donald Trump and my one friend who I think you would really like. You should have him on the podcast, Jackson.
Okay. I like that name, Jackson.
I think he has similar views to you in a lot of ways, and he was talking about just like paying attention to how narratives shift within parties. I think he was talking about the FBI, and he's like the leftists, like years ago would have been like, fuck the FBI.
Right.
And now they're currently like, the FBI said it, and it's interesting just like how we like change based off of our memory so short,
Dude, it's crazy. I literally tweeted this out the other day because General Michael Hayden, former CIA director and NSA director, I think he was NSA director, but he was involved with the NSA and the CIA at highest levels, came out and made a video about how if Donald Trump gets elected again, this country's going to go to hell, and he's supporting Joe Biden. And I was just seeing it. I was like, so let me get this straight. We're literally cheering the CIA and the NSA, the agencies that have been collecting data on us, spying, running black hit operations all over the world, dealing drugs, trading guns.
Access our phones right now. If they want to.
Like, so we're cheering for secret agencies,
right?
It's like, yeah, Trump sucks, of course. But I'm not going to cheer on like the literal like evil sorcerers that govern our reality, which is what that is. I am a history buff in a sense, and a very impactful book that I read was called The Devil's Chessboard, written by David Talbot, founder of Salon.com. And he...
what's that book called?
The Devil's Chessboard. It's the formation of the CIA after World War II. And it's like all these agencies, the prohibition on alcohol and the prohibition on cannabis, which they called marijuana at the time, the devil's drug, reefer, all these things come from like, well, we started this whole operation and we can't just shut it down because everyone's going to lose jobs, and they got a racket going, So they get like
that's like the oil argument.
That's the thing once you get a racket going, no one's going to just be like, all right, we're good. We don't need to screw you people and make millions of dollars and buy yachts and islands anymore and have sex slaves flown in. Like we're good. It's like literally that's what we're dealing with, is that we allow these fucking places like I said allow. I was like, allow. We allow these places to get like I'm a fucking psycho, right? I just sit around here and yammer about like government and corruption and
in your corkscrew backseat chair in the corner of your room.
Yeah, that's why I'm all corked up. I'm like, it's the Chaikovs. The goddamn Chinese, Russia, Putin. Let me tell you.
I would love to just like run, like, the last 20 years, I would love for somebody to run by all of the issues that have polarized us. And, like, do they ever contradict themselves? Like 1996 liberals versus Republicans, like, I don't know.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I grew up Democrat, liberal, like, and I remember in college being feverishly, there was like a huge contingency of people on the left that were like just against the war and like fuck the establishment and like just everybody just seemed like they were on the same side and very like fuck the man, fuck this whole thing kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, what happened with that? Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's not as like a united sort of front anymore. I forgot where I was going with that. I had
social media. I don't know what you guys said on the Social Dilemma episode, but social media might turn out to be the enemy.
I mean, it's all we're the enemy. It's all us.
Yeah, that's true. We created the shit.
You know what I mean? It's like, is it McDonald's fault that like there's obesity in America, or is it the fact that we love fried, fatty, salty foods and there's a company that's willing to just exploit our weakness for that stuff to make money? And you know, and it started off as this little operation and then it's turned into this huge thing. So is it like, so whose
responsibility is it?
Like, we have to take responsibility, but it also can't solely be on us because we want the environment to be encouraging us to lift up to our higher capabilities as people. Right?
Yeah, it just doesn't sell. Not in capitalism.
But in what ism would it sell?
I don't know. I mean, that's what, like, I'm a proclaimed liberal. Like, I support, like, you know, higher taxes and social systems and universal health care and all those things. But also, like, when I hear people be like, capitalism is the bane of all evil, like, we need to go towards socialism, I'm like, you know, or I hear, like, capitalism is white supremacy. I'm like, okay, well, what if a group of white guys set up socialism? Like, it'd probably be white supremacy still.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the answers are.
Well, I like the concept of, like, we're venturing into uncharted territories. Mm-hmm. We have exponential technology. We have really smart people that are learning at younger and younger ages. We have travel. We have people that are from diverse cultures. Everyone communicating with each other and working together with each other, even if it's in a competitive environment, it's still collaborating in a particular kind of way. So it's like, what could be possible that we haven't done yet? Maybe it's a fusion of different things enabled by new technology that we don't have yet, you know. But I basically, I'm with you on all those things. Why you're a liberal and all those things that you support. Mm-hmm. I probably support everything that you support. I just want it to be through voluntary choice and not through mandated government force, because the government, the police are basically the thugs of the government, right? It's like they're like these men with guns and a badge.
The bottom line. I mean,
but that's the way the whole thing operates.
They're supposed to be fear-based, right?
Yeah, that's the way the entire system operates.
Fear-based.
You know, we don't want you to do this, and if you do it, we're going to kidnap you, and we're going to put you in a cage, and we're going to treat you like an animal. And it's like, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a better way.
I mean, when you say it like that,
there's a better way.
It is hilarious. Like, I think the best thing that exploits the system is marijuana arrests and petty drug charges.
Yeah.
It's in, like, everyone's like, oh, this is kind of insane.
It's fucking insane.
But like 15 years ago, they've been like, yeah, like fucking druggies, get them off, you know?
The literal message is like, okay, we don't want you to take a plant that grows from the earth and then smoke it and then have a particular kind of effect. We don't want that.
We don't want you to be like,
we don't want you to be happy.
Yeah, we don't.
So we're literally going to throw you into a cage. We're going to send human beings with special privileges, shiny badges and guns to your home, and they're going to kidnap you, right? And they're gonna put you in like imagine if me and you decided to do that. Like imagine if you and I just started walking around the neighborhood, knocking on people's doors and being like, like, hey, yeah, we smelled some stuff outside. We got a letter from someone that said that we can come in here. And they're like, for what? And we're like, yeah, we don't like what you're doing in here. And we just cuffed them and then just took them away to like your house and put them in the basement. And we're just like, yeah, you just stay here for a little while.
Yeah.
We don't like what you're doing.
We'll give you some meals. But it's
fucking insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it is insane. I don't know. I like what you're saying though with it'd be so nice if we weren't afraid, actually. That's where I want to go next.
Yeah, man.
It would be so nice if we like weren't so
mushrooms.
If we weren't so like not just like of drugs, but like of a lot of things. I kind of feel like, the fear center of our brain, the amygdala, is I've been throwing this idea around with friends, but I think we're due for a new evolution of human. I think the amygdala is why when I am threatened, when my ideals are threatened on Facebook, do I feel anger and rage? Because this person has no effect on me truly in my personal life. Like I can't rationally disconnect. Like I feel this person's threatened my livelihood because they don't agree with me, or this person in my social circle makes fun of me in front of a group. All of a sudden I have the survival brain of someone being pushed out of their tribe from hundreds and thousands of years ago. Why is that still a part of the thing? Like if somebody makes fun of me, I should rationally know that there are thousands of people throughout Denver and I can find a new community, and it shouldn't activate such a large like stress response. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're just like, we're due for a new evolution. I feel like.
I think so. And you're such a good sport, by the way, for sitting in that seat and doing.
I know like we need to make this a video podcast just so people can comment and be like, "Wow, Mike, you really just
upgrade
you don't treat
studio.
Your guests well."
Hey, I gave you a LaCroix.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Tangerine one too.
You didn't even give me tap water.
No. But yeah, I think that we do have those biological instincts, and there has been one thing that has really worldwide been in effect since the dawn of civilization, really, which has been the eradication of individuals having direct experience with mind-altering, soul-altering substances. Graham Hancock refers to it as we've severed our connection with the natural world, with plant teachers, with, and there is a war on consciousness in order to sort of contain us into a limited slice of reality, right? So the Catholic Church, for example, went and, imposed its will on people and said that you need to think this way. The Spanish conquistadors, and they slaughtered people and trying to convert people to Catholicism and stuff. So it's this imposing our will on people. And I really think that we need like a return of the sacred, of the thing that brings us back, that brings us out of our minds so we can go back into our hearts, really. I think that's like the thing,
totally agree. Yeah. I wish I always go back to education. I wish education wasn't how did that one guy put it? Have you ever read Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire?
No, it sounds awesome though.
He advocates for a dialogue-based model of education, and I think he calls it a receptacle-based, where one person has the information and puts the information into someone else's head, versus like a non-hierarchical discussion-based, I guess, Socratic method, if you will.
Yeah.
To educate people. And I think just as you're talking about us being disconnected from the earth, from the sacred, from these mind-altering plants, we're also disconnected from education that teaches us about our hearts, that teaches us about how our minds work, how our bodies work, how to survive. Like, we're just taught how to be disciplined to do things we don't like to do, which I think is a valuable skill. I'm not going to totally discount that. I think discipline's a huge skill, but it's not the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, it's a very limited view of life, and there's so many things that we do outside of the apparatus of state-run, mandatory, compulsory schooling, education, politics, all these things. There's so many creative things, like Soul Stories, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Like, imagine if that was integrated into an educational system in a particular way.
That's my goal.
There you go, right? It's like, we need, like, it shouldn't be so hard to get these things. Like, what is best for our kids?
Right.
Maybe like meditating, learning about vulnerability and connection.
Right.
Maybe learning real world skills about how to manage finance and these kinds of things.
And build professional relationships.
Build personal relationships,
networking,
and like what's appropriate and what's not, and like the ethics of marketing and advertising and these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Like, we should be. That's when I think of sort of an ideal society, I think of decentralized pockets of communities that operate based on a principle of sort of nominating the people that they feel are most capable and wise to sort of suggest the things that we should be doing, and then those people sort of lead by example, and that we all sort of fund what we love, that we like come together to fund what we love. Now, that's in my ideal society, and I think of like sort of the wise chief, in a sort of tribal sort of setting. I think of sort of, like Socrates, like philosophizing and a bunch of people sitting around listening and then talking, or so I think of like wise leaders, wise elders, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at the old people in our society. Like, we just toss them in homes. We just like totally disregard them.
Right.
Tribal
the crazy
societies.
Old person is definitely a symptom of our society. It's not the thing.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't have to be that way. If these people were properly educated, properly taken care of, with proper nutrition and health, we could have these sort of indigenous type wise leaders. When I say that, I'm referring to sort of pre-imperialist tribes. Not to say that it was all unicorns and rainbows and utopia.
Right.
There was, people fucking doing crazy shit, and they were fighting and stuff like that. But still, it's on a smaller scale, and you tend to be able to resolve issues better and quicker and faster than going, what they say, the red tape of the bureaucracy and all that kind of stuff.
Do you know restorative justice?
No.
Restorative justice is started, supposedly, this is what they say, from indigenous beliefs, but it's essentially, instead of punitive justice, it's like, instead of what rule did you break, what relationship did you harm? Because society is a collection of relationships. And so then they have people sit in circles together, and they like prep them and they facilitate. And so they have perpetrators and victims. In not all cases, it doesn't work all the time. I don't think anything works all the time. But make amends and receive justice from being in face-to-face conversation, and having perpetrators take accountability for how they affected the larger community, their family, their friends, the victims' families, the victims' friends. And
yeah.
I
love it. I love that. I remember there was an incident at the ayahuasca center that I worked at, where me and another woman that was there had a disagreement, and things went sour between us. And it happened to be during this Colombian shaman's visit and his ceremony that he was putting together. And the way that he decided to resolve it was to have the whole all the people that were in the circle sort of like get involved, and we spoke about our things, and everyone spoke and gave their input, and then we met on common ground and like decided to sort of like make peace. And I definitely felt like it was more powerful that way than, for example, like if I decided to like go to the police or something,
Right.
Yeah.
I think that comes back to like how we can't get away from face to face, man. People need to be face to face. We don't function well as people in our isolated bubbles, listening to our media, talking to just like online typing. Like we don't learn, we don't grow. There's not feedback there,
It's so much easier to like hate and have opinions when you're sitting on your phone or on your laptop.
Yeah.
It's so much harder when you are right in front of somebody and you're hearing their story, and you're hearing like that is the most powerful change that can come. That's why I think Soul Stories does such a good job, because stories from the soul, right? You're like, let's connect on a soul level, and let's share our stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard.
I just gave my own version of what Soul Stories was, but like I'm in the ballpark, right?
Yeah. You're there. It's hard to hate people up close. I mean, it's easy to hate people up close in the sense of like family, but like people like will die for their family, even if you are frustrated and irritated and know every fault of that person. I hope we can keep fighting for face to face,
Yeah, definitely. It's a big, there's a big difference, and it's really important. I think that a lot of the issues that we face, like, dude, I don't really know my neighbors, man.
Right.
Like I don't know my neighbors, and a lot of the ways in which we've been conditioned to grow up in this environment, it's very isolating. It's like you exist in your home with the people that live there, and you buy your groceries and your food, and you have your lawnmower and your things.
Right.
And it's like
everything is yours or mine.
Yeah, there needs to be more of I think a community based design to really try and foster interaction between people. Like I think architecture and design and infrastructure is actually really important in setting this kind of stuff up. So, for example, like there's places in the world where, the town square is still like a thing, it's like it's designed in such a way where people from all, like I remember when I used to live in New York, you'd see all kinds of people riding the subway. It wasn't just one particular kind of person in one socioeconomic demographic or whatever. It was a range of people. And I feel that that's good, but it's also more things like that, right? So, I had this idea of like having like a community shed, So it's like instead of everybody having their own lawnmower and their own leaf blower, it's like, what if we all pooled our money together, and it's like, cool, I can borrow it on Saturday, you can use it on Sunday, and it becomes more of just, and it also becomes
forces interaction.
It forces interaction. It forces communication. I feel like that's something that everybody exists in their own private worlds with their own private ideologies, and then they're free to sort of rant them out on Facebook, and
Build
and then people are like,
militia.
Jesus, what's up with that guy?
Yeah. And that guy's like, well, I just spent 7 years on Reddit and the incel subreddit. Is there an incel subreddit?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Yeah. I spent 7 years on Reddit, which is only 30 minutes in Earth time. And he comes back, it's like Interstellar, and it's fucking crazy over there. I've never been big on Reddit, and people tell me that I have to go on Reddit, and it's a good way to like grow the podcast and stuff, but I just don't really get it, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of its own. I don't know people who I don't know a lot of people drawn to Reddit, but it is its own world.
Yeah.
Its own thing.
Well, here's a good thing to bring up, and it ties into what we're talking about. You and I we're like wildly different.
Yeah, we kind of are. The more I get to know you, I'm like, oh, I'm a lot more different than Mike than I thought I was.
Right. But like, I enjoy your company. We laugh. We get along.
Yeah, we have a good time.
We have a good time together. I like you. You're a friend. But we're wildly different, you know? And I think that, like, not everything has to be based upon the ideas that we subscribe to and the beliefs that we have.
Right.
You know, it's like, I respect you for everything that you do and all the choices that you make and the things that you believe in. And I also respect the fact that you're willing to hear me out and consider some of the things that I talk about. And then I consider the things that you talk about. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. You know, and it's like, man, we need more of this. Don't we need more of this?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And
more white guys that can meet on common ground, man. That's what I'm saying. That's what we need. That's what we need in this country, folks. Let me tell you something right now. We need militias of white men. No.
I'm gonna head out now. I appreciate you having me on. It's funny too. I have experiencing you on social media is so much different to me than experiencing you in person. And it's been this thing that I'm like, I'm really negotiating the value of social media because of these things.
Yeah, dude.
Hearing your voice and your ideas on social media versus hearing your voice and ideas in person is just so much different to me. And I wonder how I am in turn creating that same thing for other people. It's like,
yeah, man, it's something that I've considered recently. Like, you know, I have a tendency to get sucked into a social media vortex, and it definitely mutates me. I transform into like a swarm of locusts in a particular kind of way, and my messaging gets distorted because of that and the things that I want to say.
Me too, yeah.
And so I wonder, I'm like, oh, is what I'm like, am I being, I can't communicate clearly what I actually am trying to say because there's just not enough space and time in order to communicate those things.
Right.
But can you think of any, I'm curious, can you think of anything particular that like stood out that you were like, huh, is Mike a Nazi?
I think we already talked about this was like when you were going on like the anti-masking like rants, and maybe you weren't anti-mask, but you were like really just doubling down like daily on why masks are like social control and why they aren't necessary. And it's so interesting because like my world is so opposite. My world is so like down for masks, you know? And and it's just like it becomes that like I feel like because social media, the whole thing is incentive and like to create audience for you, for whoever's on it, we end up like sounding like a camp. We always like it's hard to not sound like a camp to have an audience.
Yeah, I know. I hate it, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I am changing the way that I interact on social media because I feel like it doesn't really act like the stuff that I post and the things I try and do doesn't really fully represent me. You know, I'm sort of long-winded and verbose and nuanced and tangential and
right. That's why this format's amazing.
Yeah, that's why I like doing this and it's like I think I'm going to start taking Seth Godin's advice more. And you know Seth Godin?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And he's just like, look, like, you know, if you do this, just do it. Like Cal Newport, deep work. Like you don't have to be on all these platforms and doing all these things. You could just focus on one thing and just do that thing. And I think my realm is the long form realm.
Yeah.
You know, I can't because, you know, yeah, I lost like 20 followers on Instagram.
From those posts.
Yeah, from these posts. But it's like really what I'm doing is first of all, I'm trying to be funny. And I'm also trying, and sometimes I'm trying to be funny. Sometimes
you got me with some of the fart ones. I did like the fart jokes.
Yeah, everyone likes fart jokes. But the way that I feel about the mask situation is that I feel that like it's a good indicator of what people are willing to accept by the people that we outsource our trust to.
Yeah, comes back to trust.
And I respect people who want to protect themselves, because I think you'd just be a dick if you weren't, right? But at the same time, I'm also not going to entertain what I consider to be fear-based conformity to a particular narrative that has been carefully crafted and bought into by a lot of people. It's tricky because it's like I want to have compassion and respect, but at the same time, I also want to sort of sound the alarm a little bit and be like, there's history for this stuff. Like there's history of lies. There's history of mind control. There's history of these kinds of techniques that are used by governments. And just when you start to go down this line of thinking, you automatically trigger a response in someone else's mind that, well, you must be right wing, you must be a Trump supporter, you must be a truther, you must be a QAnon conspiracy tinfoil hat person, respect the science, listen to the science.
Mike is official supporter of QAnon, by the way. He said that off the record.
Yeah. But it's just it's unfortunate because I do see it as something that is a little scary.
Well, I think what I appreciate about your perspective, and it's not like I'm not here to talk about masks, but
yeah, you are. This is Maskadelic. What did you think you were signing up for?
You could do a cute podcast graphic with that. Put your face with a little mask on it.
Yeah.
Call yourself Maskadelic.
Yeah.
Official supporter, sponsor of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Mikeadelic.
Let me tell you something, Jack. Oh, will you shut up, man? Let me tell you something. This guy, Mikeadelic, he's more American than apple pie, which is sweet, and this country is a bunch of sweet hearts. So, yeah, we're getting it done.
But that you challenge things, and that's okay. I think we should, there's a sect of people, I'm sure a lot of people listen to this podcast, and a lot of people that I talk to that are, it's like, we should challenge our beliefs. It's okay to challenge our beliefs. You can have somebody sitting in different corners and we can have conversations and we can learn from each other, because I feel like when I was in high school and college, I was taught surround yourself with diverse perspectives if you want to grow. And that has left the cultural narrative a little bit, but I think there are people pushing towards it again,
Yeah, I hope so, because I think that's the healthiest thing that we can do. And I think those are the fundamental principles of science, is keep questioning, keep experimenting, keep pushing the boundaries. And one of my favorite books of all time is called Science Set Free by Rupert Sheldrake, where he addresses that there's clearly problems in the field of science too that we have to look at. There's a sort of dogmatism that occurs in any field that has a hierarchy to it. You know,
therapy too, psychology is like it.
Right. It's incredibly difficult for us human beings when we have so many eyeballs focused on us to go, yeah, we got that one wrong. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
that affected millions of people. I fucked it up.
Yeah, it would be such a breath of fresh air to just be like, oh, okay, new evidence actually suggests this, so it's cool. We messed up. We have some new data, whatever it is, but there's reputations on the line, people that don't want to look like fools.
Right.
There's just a lot of, there's grants that can be taken away, funding that doesn't get met. There's just so much. And this is why I focus on government a lot, because government is the one area in our society that we deem special privileges to, that they can be this sort of, that's why corporations and people, they have these lobbyists that get in there and they push their agendas and they leverage that monopoly on force to their advantage. And it's if we could understand that the checks and balances model doesn't just occur within the judiciary, electoral, and executive.
Not electoral, legislative.
Legislative, yes, thank you. Those three branches, that it actually exists in all of our perception and our awareness as well. You know?
Yeah.
Like, we got to fucking pay attention, because otherwise we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, there are people willing to fuck us, you know?
Of course.
Yeah.
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 If you're willing to fuck me, my address is No.
Are you going to say it?
No, I'm not going to say my address.
I have it on. You just texted it to me.
My address is 1 Danny Mazur Ave. Find
1 Danny Mazur Avenue. Okay.
Yeah. There might be a place like that.
Maybe. Who
Never
knows? Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's good to challenge narratives. It's good. You know, that might be the best thing about. Did you just fart?
Oh, you heard that?
Yeah.
It wasn't a fart. It was a
fart.
stomach growl.
No way.
Yeah.
That was a loud stomach. Did you eat dinner?
I'm not. Yeah, I haven't eaten dinner yet. I'm not shy to say that I farted. I wouldn't do it in this size of a room because it would just be rude to you.
It would be kind of funny though.
Yeah.
Like if we both had to sit here and you just stared at me as you did it.
So there was the quick little funny story. I was Christopher Ryan, guest of the show, tangentially speaking, author of Civilized Death, Sex at Dawn. I was
Mike's one and only prophet.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. But we were hanging out. We went to like a dinner party somewhere. I was having really terrible IBS. It was just awful. And we were in this person's house.
IBS? What's IBS?
Irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh, okay.
So it was just, I used to have an issue, you know, I've sort of resolved it, but, it's embarrassing. You know, you're at someone's house. It's a small house. You're going to the bathroom a bunch and you're like, trying to turn the fan on so it's loud so people don't hear you just like exploding. And we went to leave and I was driving and we got in the car and I had this huge like growl in my belly and I just was like, oh man, I'm so irritated. And I just let one go.
You just let it go.
In the car and with Chris and his girlfriend.
At that time?
Not really. And I was just like, man, I just blasted a fart into a closed environment with like my favorite author and new friend. I'm like, this is not good. But it was insane.
Yeah.
Like I was so flared
it's
up
like
or whatever.
A bad sitcom plot line.
Yeah. I mean, there's just I've been in a lot of situations that involved like taboo, shame-inducing kinds of things where you're like, you know, I can't help it. Fuck.
Yeah, man. Hey, I'm pro farting. My girlfriend's pro farting. You know, a lot of farting.
What do you think? What do you think it is? I know you're not a farting buff, but
I'm a farting buff.
All right. Well, then this is a good question for you.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about a fart that is worse than, say, like a burp, a yawn, you know, something like that? It's like
poop particles.
But we tolerate it in
smell.
Smell, yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty obvious one.
It's pretty obvious, yeah. But sometimes they're not smelly.
Sometimes, but you can't predict.
Yeah. See, here's a novel idea. I think that a nation that can embrace open flatulence is ready for a new change. We're ready because we're accepting each other as we are.
Yeah.
Everybody farts. We poop. We sleep.
We all poop.
We got to meet on these common things.
Aren't bathrooms crazy when you think about it? Like the amount of money we invest into our bathrooms.
Yeah.
Like we're all just like these naked, fleshy balls of muscle and bone, just pooping.
Yeah.
And then we just like trick ourselves with these fancy bathrooms and houses.
That's what it is. We trick ourselves. We're like, I'm not a monkey. I'm a human being.
I sit on a gold toilet.
Yeah. That is really one of my favorite books. I should read it again. Ernest Becker's The Denial of Death talks about how, you know, we fear our creatureliness.
Oh, we totally
we want to separate ourselves and get closer to the divine.
Well, id, ego, superego in its way is a fear-based mentality. it places so much hierarchy on the superego, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, where this primal, like...
Right, yeah. There's like this rejection of the primitive and the primal.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's a key element, though. I think that's a key element. When we look out at the world and social media and the political realm and the societal realm, everybody's wearing costumes. You go to work, you put on a costume. You're a different Danny.
Mikeadelic's even a costume.
Mikeadelic's a costume.
Stories is a costume.
I'm a little bit more engaged with the conversation because there's microphones in front of us. We have conversations like this. It's a little different, but
different.
we put on different masks, and there's a shame, right? Like how many times have you thought, like, if you could think right now, how many times in your life you felt shame?
Oh my God.
It's more than you can count on your hand.
Yeah, every fucking day. Just buried.
When's the last time that you felt shame?
Yesterday. Definitely yesterday. You know.
What happened yesterday?
What happened yesterday? You were talking about this a little bit with just your podcast and like growing and stuff, but like before this, but like for me, like, you know, and anybody listening who started something or passionate about something or loves something, like, it's never enough, maybe. I mean, maybe not everyone has that feeling, but I have that feeling where it's like, I have put 12 hours of work into this and that, like, on a day, and then I end and I'm exhausted, and it's like, what does this go towards? This goes towards an event with 30 people that then stops and it's gone. You know, it's like, there's this constant feeling of like, I want to be more. I want to be somebody else. I want to be better. I want to create more, and I'm not fully capable of reaching my goals, you know? I think there's a healthy amount of that, but like sometimes it hits me in the wrong way where I'm just like, I'm fucking worthless. I went through an I'm fucking worthless like 2 hours yesterday. It was rough, you know? And
so you felt shame from that.
Yeah, shame, you know, like
from the general, is it from go ahead.
Brene Brown like differentiates shame and guilt. Like, guilt is like you did a bad thing. Shame is you are bad. And so like in that moment I was bad. You know, my vision of myself was myopic. It was so small. And all I could see was like my own pain and insecurity and fear, my own like emotional, you know, my own mental health issues I deal with. And I was just that, you know. It wasn't like, oh, I could do this better next time. It wasn't logical or rational. It was just like, I am, you know.
Yeah. You really convinced yourself that was true.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's part of me that right now could convince myself that's true.
Because that's a necessary sort of lingering component that I do agree with you. I do feel that creative people need there, because otherwise you would just create something and just be like, yeah, it's great. And there needs to be a little bit of that lingering remnant of doubt and criticism.
Yeah.
Right. So it remains there. It's always there. It doesn't go away. But sometimes it takes over.
And
sometimes it wins the argument.
Yeah. And there's like healthy criticism, and then there's just like attack, you know? And I think I was in like attack mode on myself, you know, self-destructive.
Danny, this is the podcast I want to have. What we're talking about right here. This is good. Do you need to like stretch, take a break? Because I kind of want to keep going and hitting on the themes that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I need some water in the bathroom. All right. Why did I go to the mic to tell you that?
Danny's going to get some water and go to the bathroom. Is he going to do number 1 or number 2, folks? Call in. This is a big deal. You know, I think that what you were just talking about, because you mentioned like some of the mental health issues that you deal with. Like what, you know, I have my own, of course, and I relate to exactly what you just said. So what is it for you that really?
Yeah, I would say I deal with, and this part's self-diagnosed. Most of it's self-diagnosed, but I have been to a lot of therapy. Compulsive thinking. I deal with like a lot of compulsive thinking and a lot of anxiety. And in my past, like off and on suicidal ideation, I'd say were like my three big ones.
Yeah. When you have suicidal ideation, what are you thinking? Like, what's your thought process like?
It's similar to what I was just talking about. It's kind of like, it's this really lonely, isolated feeling of the outside world has kind of left, and I'm in this small feeling of just like, I feel awful. All I can see is what's wrong with me. All I can see is my shortcomings and how I've hurt people and how I've failed people and how I've failed to be this. And it's so, it is the compulsive thinking too. It's like so highly focused on like a thought and a reality that's missing so much context. It's like when I come out of that kind of state, it's like, oh my God, like, wow, there's so much more around me. There's so much more to me. And there's so many like more people being impacted. It becomes it's such an isolated, like I used the word myopic perspective before, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I've experienced that before too. And for me, it's like, I'm thinking, why am I enduring this much suffering
right.
and pain? What is the point of this?
Right. Exactly.
What if I just went to sleep and just didn't wake up?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, like, I don't know what it seems like I can't figure something out or get to where I want to be or do something or be perceived in a particular way or whatever it is that we all think about. And then when I get into those deep, dark places, I just think, well, what if I just threw in the towel? You know, it's just like, all right, enough of this. I'm good.
Because in that state of mind, at least for me, it's like, what's even the consequence? There's no consequence because I'm already I have such a meaningless existence. Why would it matter that I left? You know?
I mean, I think of, well, I have like a nephew and 2 nieces, and, you know, that I have thought of them and been like, oh yeah, like what would that would suck. Like if it was just like, oh, like what happened to Uncle Michael? Like, oh, he just, he iced himself. You know, he put a Desert Eagle in his mouth and he blasted his brains out in his podcast studio. Why did he do that? Well, he wasn't hitting the downloads that he wanted to hit. It's like, you know, the one thing that has kept me afloat in those darker times when I have thought in that way with suicidal ideation is like, what is that, the image that represents to the people that look up to you?
Yeah,
you know?
That's interesting. That's where your mind goes.
Yeah, because it's like, I imagine what it would be like for me if I grew up and I was like, what happened to Uncle Joe? Mm-hmm. I was like, oh yeah, he decided to, you know, put an Uzi in his temple, to his temple, and just fire his skull all over someone's room.
This is just going to become riffing on how you would shoot yourself.
We talk about deep, serious issues, and then we just go off on eight different scenarios that are.
I do think it's healthy to laugh at this kind of shit. I think it needs to be laughed at more.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And because I bet more people out there can resonate with this than have been publicly and vocal about or open about.
Oh, for sure.
Even the people that are listening that are right now, there's probably people that are listening that are like, oh, I don't relate to that at all. I've never had that. But if you stopped and thought about it, there was probably a microsecond in your life where you experienced something in this realm.
Well, I think it's so natural because if we're waking up and living as a choice, and if we're conscious of that choice, why wouldn't we be conscious of killing ourselves? or at least think about it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting what kept you from like making any action. And to be clear, there's like different levels of this. And like the next level from ideation is like having a plan. I've never had a legitimate plan. And I know I'm friends with people who have had plans and gotten very close to executing them. But it's interesting, like what are you about
I'm just laughing because you, out of all the words to use, used executing. Like, there was one of your friends' plan to. They're like, I know I'm going to do it. They just like roll in a guillotine into the town square.
Well, that's just impressive.
Yeah,
they pull that shit off. But like, what's your purpose? You know, I feel like people need to find their own purpose. You know, sometimes for me, I feel like it's what keeps me awake is like, there's just so much good things to be had in this world, you know, like waking up on a Saturday morning with a cup of coffee, listening to your favorite podcast, #mikeadelic, and like making a joke with a close friend or a roommate, like those little moments, you know, walking outside and it either being like super cold or super warm and sunny and just like enjoying different, like there's so many little things in life that bring so much joy that I'd rather have that than not have that. You know?
Oh man, yeah. You just painted a great picture in my mind. Like you made me think of I forget it was whose phrase it was, but they were talking about what makes poetry great. And they said it's the radiant particulars. And I really, really like that because that's exactly what you're describing is like these really particular moments. You know, I'm walking in the park to go meet some friends. Yeah. And it's like summer is just coming on and there's a particular smell in the air and you get a whiff of you get a whiff of a Capri Sun, and it reminds you of when you were in 6th grade and you went to the community pool and, you know, ate like Ilio's pizza or something, brings you back to something, and you go see your friends and you're having it's just like that moment, the sun is shining in a particular way and it can't be replicated. It can't be duplicated. And yeah, that just, to me, that just stems from love. Like it just stems from pure love. And that is another thing when I think about, like, one day my parents aren't going to be here anymore. One day I'm not going to be here anymore. One day everything that was ever known of me and anyone that I knew and was alive we're not going to be here anymore.
No, nobody will remember us.
And no one will remember us. So it's like, what do we do? You know what I mean? Like to me, it just boils down to like, we need to I think it's healthy to talk more about death and suicide and mental issues. I mean, they're not even like just mental issues. They're like psycho-spiritual, emotional, physical issues, you know, trauma that lives in the body.
Psychosomatic.
Psychosomatic. And so it's like, we really need to sort of realize how fragile I think this existence is.
Yeah, no, it really is. And our minds are so fragile. And I think something I had to deal with in my mental health journey was like, I think the mental emotional health journey is about learning how to enjoy things, because for a long time in my 20s, I remember my first moment where mental health became an issue for me. I had just broken up with my girlfriend. I was 19. I was working in the Office for Disability Services, and I was typing on my computer, translating a document. And I remember I just broke up with my girlfriend maybe 2 weeks ago, and I remember my heart started racing so fast. It was so out of control. It was like the craziest feeling I'd ever had in my life. And I had a panic attack. I didn't know what it was. I was out of control. I didn't know. I thought I was dying. I was like completely irrational. And starting then, from 19 till now, mental and emotional health has become a very big part of my life, because going out of college and into my 20s, there was just this heavy depression, this heavy anxiety about the world and what I mean to it and what I need to create. And, you know, if you know me, a lot of people know that my mom overdosed on narcotics and survived. And I've learned through that journey that my dad deals with severe anxiety and my mom deals with drug addiction and depression. And a lot of it has been for me unlearning these beliefs, whether they're from society, whether they're from your friends, whether from your family, that have made life hard to enjoy. Whether that's about myself or whether that's about like my career and what I'm supposed to achieve and who I'm supposed to be. It's like we have these camera lenses for brains and they're constantly getting fogged. And we got to constantly clean them and we got to constantly work with them and we don't even know when they're becoming foggy because we just get lost in it. We just think that's what the world looks like through that lens. And it's a lot more complicated than that. You know, I advocate for medication. I advocate for therapy. I advocate for no medication. I advocate for no therapy, like whatever works for you, you know, community, whatever. But, yeah, that was my mental health tangent.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll edit that out though, because you mentioned that on the last podcast. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I guess my point to that was to unlearn a lot of things that keep us from enjoying people in little moments in our life. We have to unlearn a lot of shit.
Right, yeah. Well, what you said about the camera lens getting foggy is something that I bring up a lot, which is a Colombian healer said during a ceremony where it was so simple, but it just stuck with me. He was like, you know, as people, we forget. We always forget. And we need to remember, and we need other people that remember that we all forget so that they can remind us and we can remind them. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. I was like, that's what happens. We get so caught up in the bubble of our existence that we forget about the fragility of life. We forget about what really matters to us the most, what really excites our souls. Right. You can ask the broiest, frattiest guy who's, you know, boofing beer on South Padre Beach or whatever, and like, you know, sucking beer out of my bro's ass, you know, and like deep down at the chorus level, like he has love in his heart for the people in his life that are closest to him, family, friends, whoever. He wants love, he wants connection. That we community, all want those things, community. And when our autopilot lives are interrupted by a loss, by a death, by an accident, by something, then it changes things for us. And sometimes it just changes things for a brief moment, and then we go back to the cycle because, like you said, the camera lens and the forgetting, we just get right back into it. But those moments when we're, you know, someone close to us has passed and we have to go to a funeral, and it's like, it really just brings everything into perspective.
And I think loss happens on like a day-to-day level. Like, you know, if life is temporary, like there are constant new beginnings and there are constant losses. And I don't do a good job of this for myself, and I want to do a better job, but like processing is so important. You know, just giving our space to be like, hey, my friend from Denver who's been here for 2 years just moved away. Like, that's an emotional loss, you know? Oh, I just changed jobs. Oh, I moved to a new apartment or a new house. That's change. It's like, we get used to environments and contexts and people and predictability, and we never have that. And we need space to always be like, oh, my community right now is actually different than 6 months ago. Like, let me think about that. What does that mean for me? How is that affecting my life? What am I doing more of? What am I not doing enough of? Like, it's just, life happens in micro moments. It doesn't happen on milestones, you know?
Yeah. And micro doses.
Micro doses, bring it back, mikeadelic.
but yeah, like what we were talking about a little bit before,
with shame. trauma?
No. Because I'm relating it to what you were...
Mushrooms?
Not mushrooms, no. But it is this sort of... this thing that happens when we're on the internet, when we're online.
Oh, yeah.
And so it creates this sort of abstraction of a human being.
Yeah.
It creates this like idea or symbol of what we really are, right? But it's not really us. And so that sort of like projection, that avatar, that thing has a whole different kind of environment that it behaves in.
Yeah, it exists in a whole different environment.
And that environment is constantly like, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. So I care about this. Be afraid of this. Worry about this.
Get a like from this.
Yeah, it's just an onslaught. And we have no time to give the proper empathy and compassion and space to people that mention things like you just mentioned, like, oh, I'm moving. And it's just like, oh, you're moving? All right, cool. Yeah, cool. People move, like things happen. Yeah, like whatever.
Right.
It's like, where's the slowdown? Like I used to have this joke where I thought when I was like doing comedy, and it was like the news on the radio could be like, it's like this crazy thing that happened, and they're like tonight at 9, like a 9-year-old girl was raped in the Bronx. Find out what happens next on Hard Copy. And it's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Wait.
That was a commercial?
A 9-year-old girl was raped in the Bronx? Like, that's terrible.
Right.
Like, why does it carry this like sensationalist tone?
Like
and it doesn't have
views.
the proper, it's like two men walked into a school and shot a bunch of people, like find out later on tonight, tune in at 7 and
right.
we're the team that covers
get your
it.
Popcorn.
Yeah. And it's like guys, like we should be like coming at this with like, guys, hey, there's a terrible problem in our country and things are happening and it's really sad and we need to talk about them.
Right.
Not this like grandma was murdered and slain in the Bronx and find out after the game. And it's like, whoa. Like, sorry to be putting it on the Bronx, but that's where I'm closest from. But yeah, right? Like, it's like we need the proper amount of space because I think that the abstraction of social media and the internet has decreased our ability to really feel.
Yeah. No, I think we're always trying not to feel, I mean, that's what drug addiction is. I just had this guy, Hassan Latif, who started the Second Chance Center on my podcast, and he talks about being a drug addict, and he's like, not like always consuming drugs is because he didn't like how he felt. And honestly, feeling sucks. It's really uncomfortable. Like it's not that great to feel things. And I think and we pretend like we don't feel things too. Like that's masculinity, right?
Right, which is the sort of toxic part, if I can say so. It's like where we don't when we're always trying to feel good, we're doing things that are trying to like make us feel good and we're escaping the present. Whatever, you don't even have to complicate it by saying all that, just saying things that like we always want to be feeling good. We always want to be feeling like we're on top. But in order to maintain that illusion, that means that we cut ourselves off from our entire capacity to feel.
Yeah.
It's not that we're just cutting off the bad parts. We're cutting off
joy,
the deep, sincere moments. I oftentimes, I've sort of made a transition from being like sort of an unthinking sort of meathead type person but I never was that. That was just an identity that I had crafted. Yeah. Like I just crafted that. I just crafted that identity to like fit in or whatever.
Right.
But that wasn't me at my core. But being in those environments and associating with people in that particular way, going out, drinking all the time, partying, getting drunk, puking, like, all this kind of stuff, right? Typical sort of sorority, frat boy type lifestyle. We all know what that means. But it's like, you talk to some of those people now as the person that I am, and it's just like, wow. Like, it's just, and I'm not trying to generalize, but I'm just saying like in certain individuals that I've spoken to that meet that criteria, it's just like there's no feeling really. It's a search for hedonistic pleasure, not for like deep, sincere, heartwarming intimacy.
Yeah, and I would even just to offer like another perspective on it too, not a different one, but like just like a.
You have to offer the same perspective as me. Or you're off the show.
Similar one.
Yeah.
God damn, you're just too funny. That's it.
I mean, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Keep saying that.
Spiritual communities. Anything can become. When I first started Soul Stories, just to put the lens on myself, I was in an incredible amount of pain. Like my mom had just overdosed. My first friend in Denver developed early onset schizophrenia. I was by myself. I was out of the comfort of my Ohio bubble and community. I was in Denver. And I was like, I'm going to start, like, it was called Storytellers at the time, but I'm going to start this group where everyone can be vulnerable and be themselves. And I was like, I remember having a conversation with my co-founder being like, if I'm going to start this thing, I need to be Soul Stories. And then I put on this whole other mask that was like, look I'm preaching vulnerability. I'm preaching this. I'm preaching that. But like, I wasn't actually going inside myself and dealing with the pain. I was just like, oh, now I'm above the pain. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like spiritual bypassing.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, because that happens when we sort of convince ourselves in our mind that we have understood a particular mode of being. It's like, oh yeah, I get that. I resonate with that. And then it's easier to project outwards and espouse outwards than it is to actually go inwards.
And does that knowledge transition from your mind into your body, into your heart? Like, it's easy to be a disembodied head who knows everything.
Right.
But like,
I've certainly been there. Yeah.
Yeah, we all have. But can you feel the pain of thinking you're worthless, or feel the pain of your parents doing whatever they did to you when you were old? Can you relive that memory and process and work through it with professional help and guidance and people around you, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a different thing.
Right. Yeah.
Than knowing about it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or the pursuit of knowledge for it.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's a pretty male-dominated or masculine-dominated energy, is the sort of like logical, rational, mental, cerebral mind. Right. When mind can represent the all of consciousness that we are.
I think it's also American too.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
I was in Brazil and I was called cold very often by like my students and the people I was working with. And here I would never be called cold.
Right, yeah.
But like, there's so much embodiment in the Brazilian culture.
Yeah.
And so here we're so rule-based and we're so like, even look at our games. Look at football, international football, soccer versus basketball or baseball. Like we're so anyways, that's tangential.
No, it's not. You bring up a good point, because it is like there is this sort of mechanism of the white imperialist European puritanical type of dominator culture that is maybe behind evolutionarily speaking or something, because they can't think of any other way to relate to the world other than by like conquering over it by imposing rules, regulations, laws, punishments, fear, right? Fear. So there's this sort of facade of it's funny. It's like there's this eerie facade of assimilation that happens and conformity to like that kind of tone that gets set, where you put on this like, hi, how are you? Yeah, I'm Mike. Nice to meet you. Oh, good, great. Yeah, great. Yeah, like we'll be in touch. Yeah, sure. And it's like, I could see how that could be interpreted interpret it as cold, just formal in this kind of formal way.
Yeah, it's very structured.
Cerebral, mind-based, formal, punishment-based thinking.
Yeah, and it works well for your environment. It works well for law and order, I guess. I don't know if you can even say that's totally true.
Gonna edit that out.
Yeah, but
unless you're talking about the TV show. Which in that case, John Mulaney has a great joke about it. Google it.
Yeah, John Mulaney is the hero. I love John Mulaney.
You ever watched the show Law and Order?
His "What's New Pussycat" joke is
the Tom Jones.
Tom Jones. Yeah, I mean, it works good for conquering your external environment, but like that's not all of life. There's so much more to your internal environment, and it's hard to get to know. It's messy. It's subjective. And you spend a lifetime getting to know it, and you still don't know it because it's always shifting and changing.
Yeah.
And we attack ourselves like it's our external environment when we need to, not always want to put it on myself. But yeah, I need to stop attacking myself and learn how to just like, oh, this is what I was dealt. This is who I am. This is the reality I live in. This is the person I am. This is the mind I have. And how do I work with that, Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so you're a big fan of Brene Brown. I have one of her books, and I've watched some of her talks, and I'm definitely interested in what we're talking about right now. I think it's tremendously interesting because I think I've been faking it this whole time. Got to get those downloads, folks. Yeah, totally. Let me just make up something.
All right. Let's do some Jimmy Fallon exercises.
Oh, that's Jerry Seinfeld. Jimmy, hey, this was great. I got Danny Mazur here. Whoa, tonight we got to listen to the Roots playing in my bathroom. Whoa, hey, everybody. Woo.
I love his reactions when he's just like, that is so exciting.
Oh my God, that's so exciting. That's so cool. Oh shit. Oh man, Justin Bieber Skyped me last night. Whoa, it's just fucking crazy. Is that a good Jimmy Fallon?
That was a great Jimmy Fallon.
Oh my God, yeah, that's amazing. Whoa, that's so cool. That's crazy. No, you didn't. Oh my God. Yeah.
What were you saying?
But that's a good representation actually of this sort of like who's really watching that and being like, this is great.
My dad loves Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, but that's like exactly. But it's like our parents.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
It's neutral. It's as neutral as you can be.
But I think it's because our parents have. Like, I think every generation, so we would be like the millennial generation and the Gen Z, the kids that are younger than us, like every generation is a little bit more aware of putting it on, faking it, giving us this hammed up version of reality. We're a little bit more, would you agree with this? Like, we're a little bit more perceptive about when people are kind of being cheesy and corny and cliche and hacky.
Oh yeah, I mean I think so. I don't know. I bet Gen Z's better than us too.
That's what I'm saying.
Hopefully they're better than us.
I think so. Yeah. Well, if you look at what Gen Z really like, I mean, I guess I know a lot of Gen Z people, and I have like cousins, family members, and I love a lot of the stuff that they love, and it's like really like irreverent, ironic, just like over the top, absurd and surreal type humor, and a lot of other just kind of, who gives a shit about a lot of, but then they also care very much about other particular things. But they're, I guess I'm speaking more towards like the sense of humor that I've noticed, and like,
yeah. What were you gonna say when you were talking about Brene Brown originally?
Oh, right. What I want to say was like, what do you think could be instituted into, like, what kind of society do you think we can create that we can produce people that are able to sort of really express the totality of their being?
Yeah, that would be so hard.
Just a simple question.
Yeah. Well, I just think
10 seconds.
I think about like porn. I don't know if you've been on Pornhub as of recently, but like top porn for many years now has always been family porn.
Oh yeah, that's right. You mentioned this to me. I was surprised at this.
Porn's
didn't know.
Been a tough habit for me to kick, and I'm working on it right now. And if you're into it, I don't care. But I'm just like
I think it's dangerous.
It is dangerous. It has been good for me in some ways and mostly bad for me.
I forget who said this, but they said if it's Jaron Lanier, who's one of the I think he invented VR, big Silicon Valley guy, but he's a hippie with dreads, and he wrote a book called Who Owns the Future. He said if it's free, you're the product.
Yeah. I think you said that to me the other day too, and I love that. But like, think of if like hottest porn when I pull up Pornhub is stepsister and brother fuck each other. Like, what are we missing right now? Because we don't talk about that. Like family dynamics.
Yeah, families need to have meetings and talk about like, all right, who's fucking who tonight?
Like puritanical Christian culture, and like, you know, we always take these camps and we always like make these rules on whose actions are worthless. You know, I talked to my girlfriend about this, but like, when you think of mental health and vulnerability, I always am on the watch out for like pop culture vulnerability, which is like what I was even talking about, which is my mom overdosed. I'm a sympathetic character. You know what I mean? But like, there's studies out there that say pedophilia could be compared to a sexual orientation. But we can't have that conversation because pedophiles have universally been agreed to be scum of the earth, right? So these expressions of humanity, and I'm not advocating for us to...
No, I know exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
Like, we don't want to think about our darkest shadow selves.
Right.
And that's what's so hard about creating a society like that. And I think we have decided that we'd rather it exist and be awful and us other them than us recognize that part of ourselves and figure out how to work with our human conditions to process them together. Because I think it's just scarier to admit that maybe somebody had thoughts about a child. You know what I mean? Like those, like all of these things are like, we don't want to own what's inside the human experience and work with it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that that's why it's like we can't have these debates on the internet.
Right.
Because they become clickbait abstractions, they become buzzwords, they become team shouting matches. I just made like a weird snort. They become team shouting matches because I definitely see a lot of people that are just on this sort of like, we gotta hunt down the child predators and it's this big thing, and like, of course it is, right?
It's an awful
but it's
thing.
Like, but to even entertain a discussion like we're having right now would be off the table, because
just to ask, where did that come from?
Yeah,
who are these people and how did they develop?
Why do we have these symptoms arising?
Right, exactly.
You know? I question this when I remember the Las Vegas shooting that happened, and I was like, this is so weird that this has just become normalized. Like, what is wrong with our society that is producing these results? Like, if you worked at a business that its job was to like produce happy, well-functioning people, and every once in a while someone would blow themselves up, blow the whole store up, shoot everybody up, fuck everybody against their will in there, rape people, like, you'd be like, what are we doing wrong here?
Right.
What kind of product are we putting out, you know?
Right.
And so we have to, I think, come with compassion to a lot of people, because I would argue that there's very few people in the world that are purely like satanically evil.
Right.
You know, I think there's a lot of distorted worldviews, warped minds, trauma-infected people, unhealed wounds, years of abuse that we couldn't even fathom.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, that's a frightening area to go to, because that means that we have to start feeling. We have to open ourselves up. We have to consider this other person as a human being who seems to be detestable from the outside.
Right.
And then what does that say about us?
Exactly. That's the question we have to ask ourselves is, am I capable of this? If I went down a different route, would I be a different person? And it, like, you know, Thich Nhat Hanh, Might be my favorite spiritual
I love
leader
Thich
of all
Nhat Hanh.
time.
Me too. Yeah.
He's recently not eating. Have you heard this?
No, I haven't heard this.
He's not eating right now in preparation for death. He's gonna die soon.
Wow.
I know, he's fucking gangsta, man.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's, man.
And so he has this poem, and I always forget the actual title, but I call it I Am. And he like talks about being these different things in reality. Like I am, I don't even know what he says, but I am the locust. I am this, I am that. He even says, the one that sticks out to me is I am the rapist. I think he says rapist. He says some like detestable type of person. And it's like, all right, yeah, like what, to identify with somebody, to know our humanity in somebody else that has done awful acts, like that's when we'll start to understand like humans, you know? And I think the other thing I want to say with mental health is like, what is culturally accepted mental health and what is culturally like disdained mental health, you know? 'Cause that's going to become a conversation too.
Yeah, well, it already sort of is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that you have, you know, I think you have this one dominant model that says that, you know, Charles Eisenstein wrote a great piece about this called The Banquet of Whiteness. And he was talking about a doctor, I forget her name. She's from Africa, practicing medicine in the US, I believe in Texas. And she said some things regarding COVID, and she was attacked for them. And Charles Eisenstein made the point in his piece that...
Oh, I remember this lady, yeah.
Yeah, he made some points in his piece that said, this is inherently sort of a racist kind of way of exhibiting power and control, because we're essentially saying that the white Western medical system and the sort of religion of science and medicine,
the religion of science, it's really interesting. Yeah,
right, like it's like the sort of the sacred cows that we don't question, right? It's like, well, of course Western medicine is the best, we've conquered all these diseases and people would be dying and that whatever, you know. So it's like we hold this up to be sacred, science and medicine, but that means that we also discount practices in ancient practices, Eastern practices, alternative practices, energetic Reiki and other healing modalities and plant medicine modalities for healing and other kinds of shamanistic ways, and they get labeled as voodoo or witchcraft. And this is the same kind of thing that happened in the past where the Catholic Church burned scientists. They, Giordano Bruno, I believe, was burned by the Catholic Church. They imprisoned Galileo, like the witch hunt, the Salem witch hunt, all this stuff, sexist, racist, classist, all these kinds of things. So when we're talking about mental health, it's like also important to consider many other ways that we can be healing that might not align with the dominant Western medical scientific model.
Yeah. Yeah, there's oh man, I just had so many thoughts. But yeah, there's so much more, and I appreciate your brand of like challenge too, I think it's good to challenge these things and to make sure like we don't just buy everything we see, even if it's easy to believe,
Yeah, I mean, I've suffered, I've experienced suffering, I experienced depression, suicidal ideation, anxiety, like I just deal with this stuff, and I just have love. Like I have love in my heart. Like I want everyone to be happy, and I want everyone to like be free and feel like they're living their best lives. And that's what I love to do the most, is just have fun and like be with people I love. That's like the number one thing that excites me about living life. And I want everybody to have an opportunity to do that, So it's like when I look and I see so much suffering, I'm like, okay, like why does this sort of company, if you want to call it that, this company, the structure of this company that manufactures these beings into reality, what's wrong here? Like, how can we make some adjustments to this that we're actually producing quality products,
Right. and having the wherewithal to just focus on that question. You know, I think we're so quick to solutions. Even like the gun violence conversation is so interesting to me. Like people are just like, therapy, just throw therapy at it, you know, just throw therapy. Like once everyone gets therapy, they'll be great. You know, I mean, I work with therapists. Like there are fucked up therapists. There are incredibly wonderful therapists that will make change in your life. There are therapists that will traumatize you. I've been traumatized. I have been transformed by a therapist. I have been traumatized by a therapist. It's such a vulnerable space, and we don't want to think about like what it means to have sweeping solutions to something.
I got it. We only give guns to therapists.
All right. Well, yeah, that's it. That's the solution.
Yeah, I'm just kind of depressed. It's like, oh, are you really?
Yeah.
Now tell me how you feel.
Now you'll fucking appreciate
Tell
life.
me about what happened in 7th grade.
With little Bobby.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, but yeah. So you're saying that the
sweeping solutions.
The sweeping solutions, the one size fits all solutions.
Right.
Yeah. That
like therapy is incredible, but there is a lot of problems. It's a very young field. I talk like I'm a therapist, but I'm not a therapist.
But you have experience and you know the world very well. I've been going to therapy since I was 14.
Yeah. So, I mean, you understand. It's just, it's interesting. It's like, isn't there an Einstein quote that if like you're going to ask me for a solution, like I'll spend 99% of my time on the problem and then 1% on the solution or something?
Yeah. And there's also, I guess he said that, but
I probably butchered it.
Well, I know what he did say was that we can't solve problems from the same level of consciousness that created them.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense to me because, you know, in this sort of data-driven world, right? Like I worked in marketing and social media, and we analyzed the data, and we said, what are people clicking on and what are they doing? And we'd like be able to predict people's behaviors, and the social dilemma that comes out talks about this. And it's like in this data-driven world, we're studying always what has worked.
Yes.
You know, and it's like, okay, this has worked, so we're just going to keep doing that. And we fail to sort of like take these risks and go into the world of uncertainty and unknowing and surprise and radical experimentation.
Is where alternative medicine can come in, because alternative medicine, the shitty part of it is it's not always proven. It's not always guaranteed. There can be abusive people in those spaces, but like it is a creative space. It is an experimental space. It is a space where you can try different ways of healing, you know? Yeah.
Well, but we're not, I think we've been lied to by, and not like necessarily intentionally, it's just that we trick ourselves and we lie to ourselves that we think we're going to figure it all out, that we're going to have solutions for every fucking problem.
Yeah. No, I haven't figured shit out, you know, but I think this process isn't about like giving answers as much as it's about like having dialogue and moving through answers and with answers and where are we now? And like something Mike said an hour ago might not be the same thing Mike said an hour and a half later, you know? And I think this is...
What, did you just catch me in a contradiction?
Oh, you contradict yourself all the time. You know, I don't know. It's just like it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to talk about things. It's okay to like work through things and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of brings us into the financial system, right? Mm-hmm. Because the financial, we all have to march to the beat of the drum of the dominant monolithic financial system, because what we're talking about on this show is really just about creating more space. So we have more time to feel and to have real human experiences and give the proper amount of attention and care and weight to particular issues and topics without always having to figure out how we're going to survive.
Right.
And how we're going to, you know, increase our pleasure through material things.
Right. Yeah. Space is really important, and space is scary. I still struggle to meditate. I think having time alone. I know people who get nauseous when they meditate. I know people who space is just not a muscle we have.
Right.
And it's hard.
I mean, I think collectively as a species, we're totally insane.
Yeah. Totally.
I mean, think about it, right? It's like when you're born and then as you progress through life, it's this totally narrow, linear version of reality that's offered to you. Mm-hmm. It's like you keep going and then you get here and then you go to the next place and then you do that and then you do this thing and then you do that. It's like my questions are always like, where are we going? Number one, and why are we going so quickly? And what are we building and for who?
Yeah. Those are all good.
It's like, what?
Right.
Why can't we just be people and kind of, and this is what you were talking about when you were in Brazil, right? Like when I've traveled to other countries, I've experienced people, for example, like in Peru or in Laos or Thailand even, families living together, aunts, uncles, cousins, nephews, like working together at a business and really just enjoying the process of being together and living life. And not necessarily, it's very strange here in America where we're isolated. People leave. Me and you both live thousands of miles away from where we grew up and where our families are.
That's not the norm around the world.
That's not the norm.
Yeah.
And there's something that we lose in that exchange, in this pursuit, whatever we're trying to do and go and be.
It's so crazy because, like, as Americans, what we have access to is so unrealistic. Like, if you go, like, you can go many places and ask who Michael Jordan is, right? Like, not many other places in the world can somebody achieve that level of power and fame. Like, most people pay attention to American politics. American politics don't pay attention to most other countries.
Right.
We have such a lens on us and we have such a privilege and we have these powerful celebrities who get so much attention and these people that like change the world and have these great thoughts. It's almost like that is one of the worst things for our mental and emotional health because we see these things that we can become. We can become Jeff Bezos. We can become Cardi B. That's who I want to become. I don't know. It's just like, that's like when you're I imagine being in a place where the power isn't like at your fingertips like that, unreal, like illusion of having it at your fingertips. I imagine it's easier to not give a fuck about how many likes you get on Facebook,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it gamifies life in a particular kind of game that I would argue that most people don't really enjoy.
Right.
And it's just kind of like,
we're all just playing the game, even if we're not having fun with it.
We're playing the game, even if we're not having fun with it, because it's the only game in town right now. Yeah. It seems like, and we're like, okay, well, like cameras. You're telling me that I can have I'm seeing all these shiny, happy depictions of life that I feel like I want to experience. And you're telling me that I can get that if I work hard and I make money and I save and I invest right and I network and I hustle and I grind and I fucking grind more until I grind my soul out of my fucking anus and I have nothing and I feel morally bankrupt and I get to that position where I have 5 yachts and 6 private islands and 25 companies and I'm like, what? I don't know. What is this?
Right.
How many times do we hear that story?
Oh my God.
And still the narrative is pervasive that it's like, do more, create more, be more, make more, earn more, you will become more.
Right. And I even think about it in terms of like making change in the world. Like, like great leaders who have influenced the world. Like that is the same level of materialism to me as somebody who makes money. Is like, how much influence can you have to change the world and make it better? Like that's materialistic. That's external. that is nothing. Like, that's not you as a person or who you are or what you find joy in and what makes your clock tick, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's like, it's outside of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's sort of megalomania a little bit.
Totally.
You know, it's like, I remember the movie Troy, which is not like a great movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's fun, action thing, whatever. But
Mike has bad taste in movies.
Oh, you love Troy?
No, I don't know.
Oh.
I'm just making fun of you because you're like
Brad
trying
Pitt
to qualify that.
Well, yeah, it's just like a fun act. But because what I'm saying is, I think there's a really profound narrative in that movie, which is King Agamemnon has a beef with Achilles, who they both want to be immortal in a sense that their names will live on throughout history.
Yeah.
And that's what causes them to go to war, to go to the battles, to conquer cities, to kill people, to do all these things, because they want to be remembered throughout all of time, right? So it gets back to this like denial of death thing too.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
we're not willing to accept our limitations and our mortality. We want to create rockets that fly straight to God's, ball sack.
I was waiting for you to say anus.
I already said it.
I was like, I knew.
Yeah. We want to. That's what we want to do. We want to reach that pinnacle, whatever that pinnacle is. That we have this delusion that we think that everything's going to be okay when we transcend this like primitive human form.
Yeah.
We're going to get rid of the pain. We're going to get rid of the suffering.
Escape the feelings.
Right. Escape the feelings.
Have you ever read the poem Ozymandias?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I read that poem?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah.
How do you feel
pronounced
about when
it
people
as
stop?
Ozymandias.
Ozymandias?
Right.
Mandias?
Ozymandias.
How do you feel about when people stop on podcasts to read something?
I feel fine because I'll edit the part where we paused, and then you'll say, "Can I read something?" and then you'll just be reading it right away.
Nice. I mean, just the general concept of doing it.
Fine.
Okay, great.
I do it.
Great. Ozymandias by Percy Shelley. I didn't know it was Percy Shelley. I met a traveler from a unique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tells that its sculptor those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty in despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Which is what I picture as just like this fucked up like sculpture half in the sand being like, look, I'm the most powerful motherfucker that's ever lived. Mm-hmm. And then,
yeah, it's just tremble with worship to me. Yeah.
Right. Just this deserted land. That
how pathetic is that? It's like this pathetic clinging to something that never will be, or
right.
It's just this delusion.
It's a delusion.
It's psychopathy. It's insanity.
Yeah.
I think that's really where we're at, and maybe that's a good place to end it. And maybe we'll pick up with a part 2. I think we will.
All right. Well, I'll be here tomorrow.
Cool.
For part 2.
All right. Well, that concludes this podcast with Danny. Go to patreon.com/MikeBrank for $5. You get access to the bonus conversations, the part 2 of this. You get the Inner Sanctum Discord chat group where there's like 45 people in there from all around the world. Stickers, other bonus content, more things, goodies, personal communication, secret stuff from me, all the good stuff. Join in and you'll find out what's over there at patreon.com/MikeBrank. Go listen to part 2. So the reason why there's a part 2, I know this is a long podcast, but Danny and I got into a conversation for the first part, and it's just a different podcast, and then we started transitioning into something different, and we pick up on that in the second part that's on Patreon. So it's kind of like two different podcasts, two different styles of podcasts. And I think you'll really, really enjoy it, as I did very much. Go to sheathunderwear.com, put in the promo code mikeadelic, and you get 20% off. They're amazingly comfortable underwear. Boxer briefs for men. They have underwear for women. They have t-shirts, sports bras. Sheath Underwear is killing it. They are just taking over the entire undergarment game. They have moisture-wicking fabric technology, dual pouches to separate all your parts down there to keep everything nice and comfortable and silky smooth and dry. So they're really amazing. I love them very much. Sheathunderwear.com, promo code mikeadelic. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you can. Would really appreciate that. You don't have to write anything. If you want to write something, that's really nice. I really appreciate and love everyone that does. But please help support this little independent show and spread the word if you feel the word needs to be spread, if it's worthy of being spread. Much love. Appreciate everybody. Thanks to Danny Barnett and Galaxia for the music. And shout out to everybody who is listening to this still right now. I love all of you very much. Peace.